Alrighty. Yo, what's good? It seems like Satisfactory is a little bit too quiet. Let's go ahead and turn this up. Looks a bit better. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that leaves it at about a little bit too loud. We'll turn it down just a little. Like 50 is good. Oh wait, did it apply that? Alright. There we go. So I'm making a massive factory right now. Hey, KFG. Oh, FPS is a little low. Hold on. There we go, that fixed. Must have been the alt tab in or something. How's your studies? For what? For your exams? You drop this down at a weird angle. You want to go right between that? Good. Like one off from the end. Sorry. Do something. The big exam you were thinking today to book an appointment. Wait, those exams are by appointment? God, I'm so good at this stuff. Looks sick. All right. Is there like a certain time frame you have to do that by? Or is it just like you just schedule it whenever? to qualify, I guess you would have to do it by a certain time. Need the high speed for this one. There's too many. 2 months from now. Holy crap. You guys have to schedule way in advance. So it's like high demand right now? That's my assumption. Or is it just like the available appointments are like months apart? You need to be second year of high school? Okay. Alright. Give high speed connectors. We need them. There is a high demand? Yeah, I figured. Do those programs come with like an arrangement for like need more AI boards? Do they come with like an arrangement of like job placement after you finish the program? Usually when you have like specialty schools, they usually have like set up internships and stuff like that. That would be real useful. I know this is like probably one of the cringiest things to ever see. Oh, the overlay's busted. The name shouldn't be moving like that. I'll have to fix that when I get back. A little weird. Yeah, but usually they hook up with like a job placement or internships and stuff. At least they do that in like colleges. They'll have like a list of places that commonly like accept internships, and then you could always apply to those. It's really useful for getting good at stuff. Books only do so much. There's nothing from the government, but next year, you think there would be an advantage for... Oh, yeah. I can imagine. Like, if you go for a degree that you pretty much already went to a program for. Yeah, definitely. 50 is quite a bit. How much was it per? 3? Oh, yeah. Per... Do you play games anymore, KFG? Or you just like quadruple down on the school? Nothing wrong with quadruple down on school. I'm just asking if you still play games, or what do you do for your relaxation? Because doing that much schooling, that burns people out usually. Probably gonna go with 8. Excuse me? Net. Second exam. This university is considered one of the best universities. Nice. Now, is that like scholarship ran and everything like that because you scored so high? I can imagine like hitting a super high percentile would land you with a government funded scholarship and stuff in order to encourage like not employ, but to encourage people to do really well, right? Like, oh yeah, if you do X, Y, and Z, get to go to the best university we got, riding on the government. I mean, that's what I would do. If you're focused on like in creating more specialized people, I think there are some programs for that. Yeah, it might be varying based on demand and stuff like that. Never know. You. Is off by orange. So that hooks up that whole segment. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm going to be making a power room, which will control all the segments, like this area and like iron we have over there, copper, yada yada yada. So one of the things is like these make aluminum, copper, and iron. So this is iron. Right, iron ore, water. What is needed for copper? Copper or water. Okay. I think we run another iron segment over here. Yeah. I think we need another iron segment. Surgeon or some kind of doctor? I mean, personally, I think it would be too early to decide because a lot of people don't even know what kind of doctor they want to be or even what's available for them, right? Surgeon's crazy cool though. If I were to get a re-roll, and if I were to go into medical field, I would love to have gone into diseases. Personally, I find them fascinating. That's just me though. I think it's crazy, man, how little microorganisms can actually just completely, right? They're extremely sophisticated. Enough for 20 of them. We have need in case. Yeah, I think diseases and pathogens are crazy cool. You also got like one of the reasons for my logic too on that is like just perspective. A couple hundred years ago, not even a couple hundred years ago. Yeah, actually a couple hundred years ago. those little microorganisms were like used to create the fucking the perspective that curses exist. You know what I mean? People thought curses existed, that uh divine like retribution was casted upon someone. Like if you had warts or something like that, right, you'd be executed for like either adultery or some form of like you know sin that the community has deemed that to be part of. You know, it's wild. It's absolutely like batshit wild how pathogens have infected like society as a whole since like since the dawn of time, really. And so to me, I find them absolutely fascinating. They're super cool. Plus, like the way they propagate and everything like that. You like take COVID for example. It's a highly mutacious pathogen that it just like constantly mutates, and it's to the point where you have to get so many vaccines and boosters and this and that. It's like it's the new type of flu that society has to look out for. You know, it's something that's ever evolving and that we still to this day haven't checkmated. Right? That's crazy, man. Something that just came out of nowhere and it's just like, well, this is another thing humans will always have to deal with now. Like, it's so wild. And there's more out there. You know what I mean? There's more out there. It's a lot more than just COVID. COVID is just the one that came up, you know? And there's going to be more diseases in the future. And it's something that like scientists have predicted, you know? It's so crazy because before COVID came out, if there's a bunch of like documents about like how people are going, like scientists are going, you know what? It's about time that we had a disease that just messed everything up. We don't know where it's at. We should have had it already. You know what I mean? Because it's just the trend that we've been following for hundreds of years, is that there's always this new disease that pops out of nowhere X amount of years and just wreaks havoc. You know what I mean? And that's why the vaccination came up. There was these labs that were already created in the expectation of a random disease popping up. And so all of a sudden COVID comes out of nowhere and they go, called it, and then they went straight to creating the vaccine. You know, because normally vaccines take forever, but it was predicted. That's the major difference. A lot of people were like, oh, the government came up with the vaccine way too quick. Like, yeah, because we've been waiting on it, right? If it wasn't for the fact that we were already like predicting that this new pathogen was going to come out of nowhere, like, yeah, we would have been screwed. It would have been 1,000 times worse, man. But, you know, trends. It's just like with the fact that like California, right? Here's something that's not medical based, but it's also a trend of nature that just always occurs. California is due for like a huge earthquake, right? So imagine within the next like, I don't know, 50 years, there's probably going to be a massive earthquake that just completely changes the way California looks and everything, because that's literally the seismic history of California, and that's what scientists is for. You know what I mean? We use history to predict what's coming up, and we do that for everything, not just medical. It's also like the geographics, like environment and everything like that. It's all predicted. There's certain things that are of course random that you can't predict. It's like, well, how come we can't tell there's earthquake, like an earthquake is gonna hit Florida at blah 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 or yada yada yada. You know what I mean? It's like we can't predict everything, you know, but there's these massive seismic events that get logged into the crust in history that we can look at and reference. You know what I mean? Just went full tangent, my bad. Telling you, man, placing all these conveyor lift floor holes are toxic. You should see the map. The map for actually uploaded the map for the interactive because I wanted to check it out. And it looks so sick when you have everything perfectly lined up. And if you have anything that's off center, it's so triggering. It's so bad. It's so bad. You're looking at it and you're just like, okay, I gotta go replace that like immediately. It's just it's off center by a millimeter and it's throwing everything off. But yeah, man, I'm excited to see what that program does for Saudi Arabia. I can imagine it's gonna make the whole country like boom, man. When you're encouraging like education like that, the quality of life for your country always goes up. Education always leads to better quality of life. Why like a lot of Americans were getting pissed off when government's first choice was let's defund schools. Like, no, that's the exact opposite of what you should be doing right now. Like, what are you doing? It'd actually be back by one. Ugh, terrible. All right, we'll fix it. Yeah, like defunding schools is like, it's always bad. Plus, teachers already don't get paid that much. You know what I mean? Like, especially like if you're working at a university, sure, but high school and middle school teachers, they don't make squat, man. Why defending schools? Because schools that's how you raise the quality of life. That's the trend of quality of life. If you want the quality of life to go up, you have to invest into schools, right? I'm not saying all schools use funding appropriately, but you can't just cut off funding. Why defund? Because they think it's expendable. When in actuality, it's like one of the things that you should never try and pull away from. You never should take the funding away from schools. It's so bad. Is this how we have to do it? I think this is. Check. Yeah, this is how we're gonna have to do it. Yep. Nope. Yep. Government always tries to cut costs at the most weird locations. Why is it doing that? If I remember correctly, I set up the other side just fine like that. It shouldn't require the yeah, see? Okay, let's see how many spaces it. Okay. I got it. We got it. Should always pump money into schools, man. Oh, it's elevated, isn't it? 100% it's elevated. Why is it elevated so much? Yeah. Yeah, he did all sorts of shenanigans like the knitted conveyor belt lines and stuff like that. Josh is funny, dude. And all his content is gold. Like, that dude makes gold content. But yeah, he would make these giant conveyor belt meshes. Then he had the big old conveyor belt tower. Dude's wild. the ground now. Yeah, and if we look, that one's elevated. I don't know why that one's elevated. That's so weird. Thinking of doing 2 exams? Or like 2 different subjects, or what do you mean? Step in the second exam of high school. Okay, that fixed it. Now, so you'd have to schedule for that one too? You have to wait until you meet some criteria, or do you just schedule it whenever? Off. Cringe. Best plan is to book an appointment, then you have to start studying. Yeah, that would make sense to keep everything fresh. Personally, I just study things that I like. Right, that's what made me a terrible student. Because I didn't care what the school was teaching. Usually if I find something interesting, I'll know quite a bit about it before I even go to take a test or an exam, because I do a lot of self-study. I derped. All right, now we got it. The line is set up proper. Yesterday, the math teacher started questioning about the grades of the exam. He was shocked that you didn't do the exam. Why? Were you supposed to be able to take it already? And you didn't take it yet? Maybe we need to pull it back. Maybe I need to not derp and line it up properly. Maybe I need to not derp and set up the bottom one properly first. Your friend is booking the 4th exam? When are you booking it? I'm actually surprised you haven't either, because you talk about your exams a lot. I figure you would have been prepped already. Today? Wait, you booked it today or you took it today? Those are two different things. Need to clarify. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, dude, I would book as soon as possible and just get studying to get it over and done with, right? Unless you feel like you need additional studying. When you study for 2 exams at the same time, it's difficult. Yeah, 100%. But you need, one of the biggest tips that I will give you when it comes down to studying, never study to memorize, study to understand. Never study to memorize. Studying to memorize does not equate to comprehension or understanding. When you understand the reasoning of something, it is a hell of a lot easier to remember something, right? So when you understand like how the formulas work for math, just as an example, why the equations are used in a certain way, then you'll actually be able to recall them so much easier. For example, when I teach someone how to cook, right? Back when I was teaching or training employees, I would always explain the reasoning so they have some level of understanding. And then after you explain the reason, it is so much easier to remember things. Never do it to just memorize. That's the wrong way to teach, right? Like a lot of people try and depend on flashcards and stuff like that. I'll do that to test if I remember something, but always focus on the comprehension part, right? That's the point of school, to comprehend like just general crap, right? When it comes to middle school and high school and stuff like that, they just want you to understand the basic concepts. That's why college is such a way different way of learning, because it's no longer, you're no longer going, oh, I remember this formula, I know this formula, I know this formula. You start having like-minded individuals coming around you and go like, oh yeah, by the way, did you know that the interaction for the 4 transformer, blah 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 blah. Like it's interesting how it affects the the oscilloscope readings and blah 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 blah. Then like you start to actually get into the nitty gritty nerdy stuff, and it's just more enjoyable. But when it comes down to like high school, it's always like this memorization technique crap. That's just cringe. It's so cringe. That's why when you're younger, you learn so much because your parents always try and explain the why. The teachers always explain the why. You always ask the why question. But as far as like just memorization, it's like it's so terrible. It takes so much more work. I think that's why when I was in college, I was an assistant, right? And I was also a tutor. And I would have these truckers, right? These truckers that haven't done math since I was a toddler. You know what I mean? Like their math skills are non-existent. And here I am teaching them calculus, right? These truckers would like get red in the face with anger when it came down to math, and they hated math. Well, they would get me as a tutor, and next thing you know, no problem whatsoever. And it's always because I always explain the reasons, the why. As long as you have the why, it's so much easier. Yet the thing about like tricks and stuff like that too, it's like for example, remembering Sokotoa, right? You have as long as you have like a sound to an acronym, right? Sokotoa, you can remember the order and all that's like, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, PEMDAS, stuff like that. Makes it a lot easier. But what I'm talking about is when you're actually implementing the formulas and stuff like that itself, or like, for example, when it comes down to like medications, like here's the science part when it comes to like medical. There are some for just as an example, antihistamine is a histamine blocker, right? It's used for allergies, right? Because your body produces like these chemicals that tells your body, oh, you need to sneeze this crap out, you need to do this, you need to generate heat, or when you have a flu. Well, anyways, histamine blockers, right, which is typically for allergies, is also treated or used for anxiety because it makes you drowsy, right? And so understanding like, okay, well, you have something like hydroxyzine, which is an antihistamine, that even if someone has it prescribed to them for, say, panic attacks, they could take it for their allergy seasons too. It's actually only like 150 milligrams. Well, they come in 150s and 300s, but it's stuff like that. Like when you understand what the actual medication is itself, you can implement it for things that are outside just standard stuff. The only exception to this is when it comes down to antibiotics. You should only prescribe certain antibiotics for certain viruses. You don't want to just use whatever antibiotics you have, because if you have those, it's how we get super bacteria is when you start assigning random antibacterials and stuff. It's just terrible. But yeah, science is cool, dude. Surgeons are a lot different. It's a lot less of the I always think of like surgeons as the sports player, not necessarily the book nerd. Though they have a lot of like, you have to be able to identify any part just by the look of it, right? You have to know what you're doing and understanding, and you got to know how to work around the human body, which is crazy. But it's a lot more precision work than like you would need as like, say, for example, one of my favorites is like if you were to work for the CDC or someone that works with pathogens or diseases, you don't need steady hands. You don't need to, in fact, you don't even need to know how to socialize that well with doing pathogen work, because most of the time you're just in the lab testing, seeing what kind of genes you can implement to work around certain pathogens, or finding identifiers and stuff. I don't know how I want to run this cable. I did not think this far. I don't think running it down here makes sense. So normally in a factory, you would have one line running down here in case you need an outlet, but I don't think you would run it along the inside like this. Exposed wiring like that is no good. So I think I gotta bring it down underneath the floor, but I don't think I should bring it down that way. Think? Let me read what you said instead of working with this. Yeah, dude, you know what? That's why everyone shows Bill Nye mad respect, because Bill Nye was one people, like he's one of the major contributors towards science, the evolution of science. Like society as a whole was dropping dramatically with the number of scientists that we have, because most of the scientists, you got to understand, back then scientists worked out of their garages, right? There were no like major labs. Like everyone was pretty much working in their garage doing some weirdo stuff. For example, like the microwave was created in a garage. Computers were created in a garage. You know what I mean? So it wasn't until like the boom of science that we started getting these scientists for all sorts of segments. And when you have a good teacher, like your chemistry teacher, that makes you laugh, you actually learn it, right? Because you're engaged. I love teachers like that too. A teacher that can make you laugh is critical for school. Now, I'm not saying, oh, haha, funny, but if he can make the subject itself interesting, then they're an amazing teacher. Right? Because it's not hard to watch stand up, but it's hard to make a subject that you're assigned to interesting, right? Improv. I think I'm going to drop it down this way. Though I think I want it to be an MK wall outlet, but I can't put that on the group. I don't know how I'm going to do that. Maybe if I do like a MK power pole, like right in the corner. And then that's not in the corner enough. Do something like no, I need it kissing the corner. I think that's as far as it'll go. It's kind of lined up. It's good enough. Some say organic chemistry is hard, but I think a lot of chemistry is very confusing for individuals just because you can't validate with eyesight, right? At the end of the day, chemistry and a lot of like science in general cannot be, well, actually chemistry can be validated with eyesight, or organic chemistry, not so much, right? Because you can't really see the reactions occur until you get a microscope. Like, for example, one of my favorite content creators, Carl Sagan 42, he works with like gene splicing and stuff like that. He works with plants. And honestly, the stuff that he does for work is awesome. It's so dope. But himself, he goes like the realization of when science actually works, being able to observe the changes after doing some witchcraft. You know what I mean? It's fascinating. But if you can't picture it, it's really hard to comprehend. Right? A lot of people need that level of validation where they need to be able to imagine the occurrence happening in order for something to be understood. They need to be able to see it or verify with eyes to be able to understand. Not everyone's able to just like go, okay, if I do this, then this happens, right? For example, it's not until like, for some people, they need to see the arrows for a magnetic field to understand that it's, you know, it tends to have a round shape to it because the poles, right? The further away it is from its projected and receiving, right? Right in the middle, it's going to have the weakest amount of polarization. So the magnetic field's at its weakest away from the two polarities. But some people can't really picture it until you show the image. And then they connect, oh, well, of course it's going to be tight around here because that's where the polarity is at its strongest for the positive, and this is for the negative. Or this is just how the magnetic field projects itself, right? Some people need that imagery to comprehend and understand. Organic chemistry is not easy once you get into the later stages. Some people have a better gift at it, right? That's just like when it comes down to like electronic. I can replace anything in any electronical device, no problem. I have a full comprehension of ICUs and stuff like that, no problem. But if you were to tell someone else, like, okay, how do computers work? They go, witchcraft, you know? To me, it's simple as hell. But for a lot of other people, when they don't have that basic level of understanding, it's really hard to understand. It's just really hard because you're going from pure ignorance, right? I mean, it's the truth. Some people just like, for me, if I were to sit here and go, well, of course, you know, your computer's going to be blocked on your RAM because of the timing, and it's not necessarily just the CPU and the speed of the RAM itself. You need to actually have good close-knit timings for the serial bus to have proper, like, clean communication between the RAM. You know, I spend more time looking at those nitty-gritties and I understand how they work, and I can visualize it just by hearing the timing. But 99% of the people out there, that's not like common sense to them, right? I have a deeper, more rich comprehension of it. I can actually like imagine it, but I've also, I mean, I've worked with oscilloscopes and everything, you know. I guess it's a bit of a cheat. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a wiring line, right? So I'm thinking something along the lines of like, let's say if we remove this. The whole time I was talking about that, I was like trying to visualize how I do this. So if we do something like this and we have these walls, then maybe, come on, bro. Do I have to pull it up? I want to be able to place it. I guess you can't place it underneath. Yeah, you can't place it underneath because there's no wall in that segment. I love Nile Red's channel. I absolutely adore Nile Red. I love science, bro. And chemistry was a huge one for me growing up. So Nile Red is goated in my book. Like, he is goated. His channel is just pure awesome. I remember me and the missus would go to watch Now Red. And she's just like, she's looking at me in confusion as I'm smiling. I'm just like, oh yeah, of course that would do da 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 da. And she's like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Like, but I like chemistry. You know what I mean? Chemistry's cool. I don't even know where I got my fascination for chemistry. Originally it was physics. I used to really like physics because of my grandfather. But out of nowhere, I just fell in love with chemistry. I think because chemistry is like how things actually operate versus like physics is just like the math behind all of it. You know what I mean? You have like astrophysics, which is like putting something in just, you know, how formulas work in outer space, because things don't move in the same way with gravity affecting it, right? Certain things are just way different. For example, like in astrophysics, you need to actually understand how light works. Not so much in the formula for just standard physics. Well, I guess, no, you do use light on a lot of formulas. Like speed of light is used so much, it's almost like pi in math. My grandfather was a professor who taught physics. And he had this room with billions of books, man. He had his library. Like a library. And I remember as a kid, I would go in there and I would just be reading these textbooks. There'd be times I'd go to his office, I wouldn't even say a damn thing to him, and I'm just sitting there reading textbooks. What the hell is this for? I don't even know what. There's no output, nothing. What is this to? It's connected. Oh, it's to you. Okay. That makes sense. But yeah, he was a physics teacher. And he was into science too. Right? Like science was his thing. He did not discriminate against science. Right? There was no like physics is better than chemistry. Not like none of that super nerdy debate. Science is science. Oh, dude. I would love to have a library. But I also know I'm a complete nerd. I love science. Now it's less of a library because now it's like you can just download all the books. Right? But I would totally, if I was a super rich man, I would probably be that pompous dude that would have a library with a cigar, the whole nine. You know what I mean? Oh yes, I'm going to my studies. I found this fascinating book that I'm dying to get back into. It does feel different, but to me, knowledge is knowledge. I'm more fixated on the knowledge itself than the book. Does that mean that I would reject having a book just because I can have it a downloadable? No. Because books are awesome, right? But I'm also that person that, like, if I have the option of just getting it now as a non-book, then I will get it now as a non-book. Right? Okay. So this is going to be our little electrical line thing. I think we need to bring this down by maybe even 2. Probably 2. And then I think we could turn around and grab this foundation, the 1mm, and perfect. Yep. So that's how we're going to run the power grid. So the reason why I'm not just hooking up all the electrical lines to each other is because I want an actual electrical room with these power switches. I can control the grid. Kind of like a fuse box. So in Saudi Arabia, there are some books they don't print you, but at the same time, phones and things are forbidden in school. Oh, so they don't give you a copy, a hard copy, but at the same time, you're not able to use your school or laptop in order to reference them, is what you're saying. To that I have to say, dumb school rules. It's actually just completely stupid. Like, another thing too is, like, when I was growing up, a lot of the school will never let you use your phone, like even at lunch and stuff. And this is in high school. They're like, no phones, right? Because it would be a distraction. But nowadays it's like, dude, I'm using it for information. Can I use my damn phone so I can figure this thing out? Dude, I wish there was like is there a shorter gate? Cringe. I mean, technically we could run these through the conveyor wall line, but I think what we'll do is we'll just have a gap. Oh God. Yes, I'm a genius. Hold on. Let me flex my brain. There we go. So now we can run it through there like that. Middle school between 92 to 94. Now your grades are near 100s. Nice. In high school, my grades were 60, in the 60s. Yeah. High school, my grades were bad. In college, my grades were hundreds. Except for one class where the teacher just randomly dipped. And so the school was trying to figure a way to compensate. And what they did was assign grades, which is cringe. I think we can actually delete. Can we delete that one? No, we can't. We need that one there. Cringe. Maybe it won't look. Oh, please don't look. Please don't look. It looks all right. Maybe we can move it up a little bit more. Something like. Actually, needs to come up so I have room for the lower line, because you don't want naked cables like this running across each other. And then we can run this to here, and it'll go down that way. Now I don't know if I want this to be one foundation apart or two. Probably going to be one. So if it's one, then it needs to come in more, so I can run the other side too. Middle school feel harder than high school? Kinda. It can be. It depends on your school and your teachers. Like 70 to 80% of your school experience is your teachers. 10% will be like your friends, the environment, the people around you. And then you got like 10 to 20% is the school rules. So you hear in the university or college, the professors are mean with students, so they just don't say anything. Maybe in Saudi Arabia, over here, if you dick around, they'll just tell you to leave. Man, when you're in school or like when you're in your university or college, you're an adult, right? So you're there to learn. You're spending money to learn. So learn. Don't sit there and dick around and waste people's time. Right? I used to get pissed, dude. I was the guy that would actually yell at people and say like, hey, listen, you need to shut the hell up. Like, I'm here to to talk nerdy crap. If you don't want to talk nerdy crap, get the hell out. You know what I mean? To me, it's an insult. It's like, I'm paying money for this, not to hear you chatter. So if a professor's slightly mean, I guess it does, depending on the reasoning, right? If they're just rude and disrespectful and egotistical because they work at a university, it's cringe. But a lot of times it's not like that. Not from my experience. It might be different in Saudi Arabia. I don't know. They didn't go to college there. Be right back 1 sec. Another side note too. There have been times where I've had like a disrespectful, but most of the time. So there was this one instructor that we had that we called Ben Stein, because he talked just like Ben Stein, right? And dude always reeked of gin, right? This guy was always drunk. And he would always sit there and talk to people like he was some math wizard and shit. And there's been so many times where I looked at him and I'm just like, I'm going to let it go, but you keep going on about it and I'm going to have to slap him. So if you get in with in the 2 exams, good grades. Get. See, that's what I figured though. So the thing for you is, because your region is very competitive, then there's no incentive for the government to promote it. Right? Nah. Maybe. I doubt. Saudi Arabia has a lot of racism? I didn't think it would. Old Saudi Arabia, I can see 100%, but that's, I mean, most countries had that. But personally, I think Saudi Arabia is too into rapidly advancing to have that. Usually lower end countries that support that kind of mentality. right? Countries that aren't doing well, they, yeah. Do I doubt it ever existed? No, it definitely existed, but I doubt that's the reason currently. Usually government that's all about progression, they don't got time for the racism, right? They're more about, okay, well, what do we need to do to improve the quality of life in order to ensure that the average is better than what it was? Well, we have this area that has really bad statistics going on with them, where their average grades are trash. So what do? We encourage by promoting an incentive in order to get into a program, in order to, you know, get into free college and blah 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 blah. Then it grows, but there are yeah, wait, what? So there are in Islam two big groups known one of them gets some advantage of some kind. So there's a group in it that has some form of advantage over others. Well, I mean, people like to group based on religious beliefs all the time, right? Even if it's the same exact religion, it's like, oh, you don't go to my church. Honestly, why I don't support religion. Religion is supposed to be used to pull people together, not separate them. I feel like people have forgotten that. Easier to unite people under a religion than it is to relate them under like no cause whatsoever. For example, people don't really support countries, right? It's not until recently have we had countries that go, oh, I'm from this country, therefore I like people in my country. You know what I mean? But even then, there's a lot of people that sit there and they fanboy over their country but don't love the people in it just because they're different. America. Cringe. You'll never see me take part of that kind of stuff, to be honest. Kind of getting better now. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, as society evolves, it's funny because back in the day we were dependent on religion to keep us together, and now that society has evolved, religion becomes less of a factor. People are 1000% allowed to believe in their religious beliefs as long as it doesn't inflict any damage upon other people, but religion is becoming less necessary for modern day, right? Because now we have science to explain things. Now we have laws to govern society, and we're just progressing as people in general. As society evolves, it'll be just less and less dependent. Which, in my opinion, if someone is truly one of devout faith, they'll still follow their faith regardless of what society deems as necessary. You know what I mean? But in those kind of situations, right? Like how you're saying that there's one group that's getting favoritism over others because they both belong into the same party or same religious faction. Like as religion becomes less and less important, that kind of biasism, it just goes out the window. Biasism. I just make up words now. It's just bias. I used to like that. We're gonna have to delete the end off. Man, this factory is looking sick. I swear only Giga Chads play Satisfactory. I wish they had more consistent and better updates. A lot of their updates are kind of garbo. But I love factory games like this. So fun. This is going to be an overkill of iron. I should probably go up. Also, I need to make like a conveyor line. Take back to base. Yeah. Which, if someone, like, again, people are allowed to practice however they want. They can worship a frog for all I care. It doesn't matter to me, right? If you're finding relief in it, then that's a good thing. If it alleviates stress, that's a good thing. The only problem that I have with religion is the tendency to suppress others, right? You don't believe in my God, you know, you don't follow Allah, you don't follow Yahweh, you don't follow this, you don't follow that. It's like, dude, come on now. As a society, we're past that. You know, you got your God, I got my God. Practice our thing and be chill with each other. But then the fanatics come around and ruin things, right? And that's not the religion's fault, by the way. Those fanatics, they're not the religion's fault. Never blame the religion for the fanatics. It's fanatics twisting the word and imagery in order to suit their needs, just like how kings have done for hundreds of years, thousands of years, right? This land is mine because I'm ordained by God. Blah, 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 blah. You know that whole spiel. But yes, 1000%. I mean, I used to go to church all the time. There's people that, you know, their greatest day of the week is Sunday because they need church. It's something that brings them fulfillment and fills whatever void that they're feeling. I 1000% respect that. For someone that goes to help themselves in such a manner, because religion can be used in such a way, and I respect it, but my problem is all the drama that comes with it. Like, I think I talked about this once. Back when I was a kid, I used to go to this thing called Fanime, right? Anime convention. Every year when I was like a teenager, I was going to Fanime with my friends, you know, to watch anime, go spend money on pointless, stupid crap like posters and stuff that you could easily have bought online. You know, but it's a convention where people would cosplay up, and I was one of those people that would cosplay and everything too. Man, it was a blast. I had fun. But every single year, anime is the work of the devil. Wait, no, hold on. I got a better one.
Anime is the work of the devil. If you like anime, you are worshipping Satan.
Like, bro, really? Are you serious? Like, it's made from some Japanese dude in Japan. You think he's Satan? Really? Come on, bro. Be real. And it's always that those people that push their agenda by using religion as an excuse, that's always gave a bad taste in my mouth. Like, don't use religion as an excuse to spread your beliefs or perspectives. It's cringy as hell. I can't formulate my own belief or points. So let me go ahead and use XYZ from this religious book. And then at the same time, they also won't even understand what those passages mean. So a lot of times when I was a kid, I'm sitting there, I'm like, bro, I'm a confirmed Christian. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, as far as I know, 200 BC anime wasn't a freaking thing. The hell is wrong with you? Oh, it's depictions of false idols. No, that's not what it. Bro, you need to go back and read about the ox. Like, like, no, it's not what that was at all. People are wild, man. But yeah. But it become your fault when you get a lot of reason? What you mean? I think this one's gonna be murder. Can't be a murderer because of that dang spot right there. Cringe. What you mean by reason though? Like if you fall off from faith because of reason? I don't know why it doesn't just let me. Wait, is that a thing? Can I do that? Bro, no way. No way this is a thing. I'm gonna lose my... Bro, what? What? I didn't know you could set up mergers like this. I'm gonna grab some water while I'm waiting for a deeper comprehension of what you mean. I just could see your beliefs. What do you mean? I don't see if it is your own belief. Comes your fault with discrepancy? Like when you see flaws in the religion, because every religion has flaws. There's no perfect religion. Every religion has flaws. There's no perfect one. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't believe in your religion, right? The thing is, you got to consider the fact that religion was originally passed down by word, right? So no matter how you take things apart or how you dissect it or look at it, there should always be flaws because it was passed down by word. It's an interpretation by the campfire, right? As you were to say. If there were no flaws, then there is something to worry about, right? Because how could it be so perfect? It's passed down by word. Well, and then it's it's by God or yada, so and so itself. Like, well, that doesn't mean man doesn't mess up. Man always messes up. Always. There's no perfect human beings. We're built flawed. Right? So there will always be discrepancies. Now, if you were to twist those discrepancies to point of perspective, then I have an issue as well. Right? That's how I always view things. If, like, I'll ignore discrepancies for the most part until it becomes a problem. Right. For example, pushing false idols. That was a big one, right? You're not allowed to enjoy what you enjoy because it's a false idol. Well, you can label that for everything, right? For example, in Christianity, the cross is the cross itself was created by Romans, and it was given meaning to Christians when Jesus Christ was crucified. Just as an example. But if you're worshiping the cross, then that's something that the Romans created. What? Like, am I the only one seeing the flaw in that logic? Christians weren't the ones that created the cross, but it's a symbolism of Jesus Christ's sacrifice. But it's created by the Romans. It's a form of torture. So I can't like anime? I'm allowed to like whatever the hell I want. Just like how people are. You know what I mean? You're allowed to enjoy what you enjoy. The main problem when it comes to religion is when people use it to push some agenda. That's the only time I really have a problem with it. It should be used for expanding minds and teaching lessons of morality. What is wrong with this thing? This is going out, but this is going in. Why is this going in? This shouldn't be going in. That should be going out. This is the output. Oh, I bet you that's pointed the wrong way. That would explain everything. I'm having a hard time seeing this. Golden. Now it's out? Yeah, it's out. Okay, cool. Talk about that? Sure. That's perfectly fine for me. You never answered that question if you still play games or not. Also, when I come back from vacation, I'm planning to do Phasmophobia VR. I don't know if you're into that kind of thing. I don't know if I should run. Something 700 per line. With some wiggle room. Each one of these produces at 65 per minute. And these run at 780. 780 what? Per minute. 780. Refineries per. Yeah, I need to run 2 lines. Cringe. But yeah, every time you come, you've been talking about school. Do you not play games anymore? But not often. Yeah. School switched to primary. Layout? Not that either. Man, if we have to break this into 4 lines, I'm gonna lose my mind. Just haven't found, just not into games like how you used to. Games have just been less trending in general, from what I've seen. I believe this is silicon. If this is silicon, then I have to run. Probably so. Yeah. I've noticed that too. And it's not necessarily a bad thing though. Right? If you don't find games as enjoyable as you used to, and learning is something that you enjoy doing, then stick to learning, right? As long as it's something productive, then you're good. As far as games, I need something like this where I'm constantly thinking about some form of like very micro-organization-esque manner. You know what I mean? Like I'll sit here and do the math for everything. Oh, I know what I need. I'm an introvert as well. I don't think an introvert has anything to do with video games. A lot of people that play video games are introverts though. Now that I think about it, right? It's more along the lines of if there's just nothing that quite hits your fancy, then nothing hits your fancy. Because KFG, you were from back when I was playing BSS a long time ago, right? You were part of that. A lot of DNA. When you play with someone, it's just different. I agree. What the hell? Where's my color gun? Do I need to purchase one? I'm supposed to have a color gun. Where's my color gun? Customizer? Oh, do I need to... Yeah, I figured you were from back then. Because it's hard to separate certain people from, because all that stuff was clustered very close together. Is cartridges in here? Yeah, they are. But how the hell does that work? Customizer? Okay. We got this. You want to go collect some daisies? Yeah. We had a group playing back then. We had our regulars. I think you get flowers from bushes, right? Yep. Okay. We're gonna go collect all the bushes. Yeah, nowadays I've just been running like macros and stuff like that. Back then I swore I would never do it, but then my son wants me to get him gummy baller and everything, and I was burnt out. I was like, so I got gummy baller on my main without loading up a macro. And then after my son threw a tantrum because he doesn't have gummy baller, I was like, all right, tell you what, I'll set up this macro stuff and I'll show people how macros are really done. And now I get like 40 to 50 DMs a day. Hey, can you help me with my macro? It's like, oh my god. I was the guy that was super anti-macro. I still am, because it overly inflates the game and it just makes it harder for those that can't run it. And then on the flip, it's like a lot of people are macro dependent and they don't know what they're doing. You know what I mean? And they boost and they get like these really low numbers. Like I had this like level 18 hive. He was like red or whatever. And he was bragging about like a 200 bill. I'm anti macro too. But dude, there's no way I'm going to get gummy baller on my son's account without it. Right? And as a white hive, you actually do need macro. You need macro more than a blue hive. Because with white hive, if you don't have gum droppers, you're just not going to make crap. Right? So if you're going to be a solo player, like pretty much what I do, like I play with you guys, right? Whenever I stream BSS, I'll play with you guys. But when I do my boosts and stuff, I do solo. And it's because I would never want to ask anyone for gum drops or have them go on a fuzzy or blah, 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 blah. Like it's not cool. But with red and white, if you don't have stingers, you can't make squat. And if If you don't have gumdroppers, you don't make squat as white. So you don't really have a choice when it comes to macros. For those two, as blue, you can just AFK no brain all day. You're not limited based on stingers. You're not limited based on materials. You don't need additional people, though having someone else with you makes things better. You're just hard cap on how much you can make. Personally, I would like it if macros were removed from BSS and the stereotypical macro progression was subsidized by an alternative method. Right? I think it would just be way healthier for the game. But I'm not Onet, and Onet is burned out, and I don't think he's ever gonna make any changes along those lines. Sadly. Be cool if he did. But his priorities, like, he was supposed to release Coconut Belt this Beesmas, and he just he got it there, but he just changed his mind. He was like, no, never mind. So he removed it from the code, and now people are thinking he's gonna release it after Beesmas is over. But honestly, I don't know, man. The situation with BSS right now is very weird. So for the first time, or not, well, yeah, for the first time, they had a major leaderboard competitor quit, right? And I don't know if you know this or not, or if it mattered to you, but Elol, the rank 1 BSS player, was just like, I'm done. You know, I'm out. I'm not doing this no more. So that guy just dipped out. And then Mikey, who's like one of the biggest contributors as well to the BSS community, he's like, I'm bored. I don't want to play this game anymore. So he rarely plays. And I've been helping him set up RDP so he can do his macro stuff. But if he's not able to get all his RDP stuff set up, then he can't macro either. A lot of people in the macroing community can't macro because you can't macro without reserving your entire computer to it anymore, unless you have RDP set up, which most users can't do. So macro, since the anti-cheat was released, is a hell of a lot less than what it used to be. I get like again, like 30 to 50 messages a day. Can you help me set up RDP? Can you help me figure this out? Like, bro, just admit it. Macroing is dead. It's done for you, man. I'm not going to sit here and teach you how to edit your hex files and stuff. That's all you. That's you, homie. But yeah, like ever since the anti-cheat, you can't use VMware's script injections get detected a lot faster. The cons is there's like I have some stories of students that I teach. Like, what kind of stories? The subjects that I mainly taught was math was a big one, and I was doing like the year 1 and year 2 electronic classes. Fun or something like that. A lot of the stories you'd have to be there to enjoy it the same way. A lot of people, it's just the characters, right? The people that you would meet would be the funny or fun part, because you would have the most interesting interactions with people. I've worked with people that had like social anxiety on a level that is paralyzing, to like these truckers that are just like, they would be hilarious. Some of the stories that, so for example, there was this one trucker who, him and his wife signed up for classes together, and he's an older gentleman. By older gentleman, I mean he was old compared to me, right? So now he's that guy's ancient now. He's like ancient. Anyways, no. So anyways, him and his wife would sign up, and she would get so embarrassed by some of the crap that he would say that it was almost at the point where she was like, "You don't stop, I'm gonna schedule my tutoring lessons separately." You know what I mean? Because the dude would be out there on some of the, like, I can't say it here without getting demonetized kind of stuff. And I feel like that was one of the things about tutoring, is you never know who you would get. And it's so interesting and fun to meet all these different types of people. Like, I'm an introvert too, but when it comes to like social interactions, I spend like 80% of the time dissecting what kind of a person that I'm interacting with. You know what I mean? And like, personally, I enjoy helping people learn stuff too. Maybe I should convert these. Do I want to toss those leaves, or do I want to convert them? Like, a lot of the stories that happen in college, I wouldn't be able to tell here. Like 80% of it is just inappropriate. I think I toss it. Yeah, I used to teach calculus. Well, not teach. I used to help students learn calculus. I wasn't an instructor, but I was a tutor. And a lot of so Ben Stein, the guy I was telling you about, the guy that would be like drunk all the time, he was a very common instructor for calculus, that his students are the ones that I would help. Is that hard? No. Think of it less of math and more of a set of rules. It is math. It's just, I like to call it Algebra 3, right? With the extended rules edition. That's really what it is. Once you get the basic understandings of derivatives and limits, it's easy. But initially going over that barrier is kind of what is difficult for students. And when you have someone that talks to you like this in all your classes, and when he goes to explain the same things and there's no different inflections on his voice, and when you take this number and you do this with it, you get the result of this. You know what I mean? Like, of course, all his students would fall asleep. In fact, there was a running joke with this teacher where, like, I'm pretty sure, no, it wasn't me. There was someone else that started it, where they go, you know what you should do? You should make videos for students to learn so they can go to sleep at night. And that was a long running gag against this teacher because he was so goddamn boring. Like, the dude had no passion in his life. And so, of course, like, I would end up getting all his students. It was bad. I'm telling you right now, it was really bad. Like, he should not have been a teacher. And another thing too is there would be so many times where I'm like, dude, no, no, that's not how you do that. And he's like, oh, you're right. I'm just like, why are you teaching? There's no way you have a degree. I would get so flustered and annoyed. He was a terrible teacher. And so like a lot of it was funny because I'll call him A, the old trucker guy. So A would actually in class make recommendations. So are we all meeting Meccano after class? As a hint or a jab of, hey, this guy's freaking annoying. We haven't learned anything. So let's just meet up with Meccano after class so we can actually learn what we're supposed to learn. And I'd just be like, oh my God, this is so bad. And he's like, oh yeah, I've heard that he's a really good tutor, that he helps people understand. I'm glad with the teamwork between me and him that you guys are able to get the things you need to learn. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, dude, they're not saying anything good about you right now. Like, I'm glad you're taking it this way because I would be very demoralized if I were you. Because people would throw shades at him all the time, dude. All the time. For good reason. God, he was so damn boring. I don't think I've ever met someone so boring in my life. Well, because they got tired of him. That was the thing, right? It's less about like disrespectful, and it's more along the lines of like he really shouldn't have been teaching. Like there is, okay, you don't understand. We had, for example, we'll call this teacher L. L wasn't a very clever man. Well, he was clever, but he was a different type of clever. He was not very book smart, right? But on the trade-off, he didn't really know what he was doing to a really deep comprehension or anything. And he referenced the book a lot, but he acknowledged that he wasn't that good at it. And so he was always referencing the book, or he would ask me to help him find something to get the appropriate references, right? Not really good at the subject per se. And like, for example, we had him for microcontrollers, and he sucked at microcontrollers. He knew zero programming. You know what I mean? He couldn't program in C. He couldn't do the things that he was trying to teach us, but he would help guide us through it. And the reason why is that this guy was the one teaching it. It's just because the school didn't have anyone that they could actually reference or use for us. You know what I mean? So they were like, oh, we'll just throw L on it. We'll just have L do it. It's okay. He's supposed to know this. Like, bro, all right. And so during class, he would call on me a lot, and he's like, hey, can you help me find this? Blah, 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 blah. Can you help me understand this? And I would help him all the time. And he was actually a good teacher. He would always keep you engaged, and he would make references all the time of, listen, I'm not really sure if this is accurate. Just ask me later, or I'll remind you later about the specifics on this segment, right? And so he always tried to keep things like consistently accurate. Way better of a teacher than Ben Stein. Like, everyone hated Ben Stein. I think I was the only person that was actually nice to him. Because, you know, you never know what people are going through or whatever. I'm not going to sit there and be mean to someone. But he really shouldn't have been teaching. He really shouldn't have. Man, that guy was so damn boring. And you're going to run into that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Or maybe you get lucky and you don't. But those kind of individuals out there that have zero passion for what they're doing, they're going to be interacting with you. And they may be your boss, or they may be trying to teach you something. And you're going to hate it. Just be respectful, move along. That's my only advice on that. Life is too short to waste energy on that kind of crap. But man, people were brutal to him. I'm sitting there, I'm like, he's kind of a champ for taking it on the chin, but holy crap. Like, they are brutal. They did not pull punches back, man. To be fair, the students did spend money, you know what I mean? Imagine spending money and you get Ben Stein as a teacher. Like, listen, the only time Ben Stein works is for comedic relief. Outside of that, hell no. You're gonna have Ben Stein teach calculus? What are you thinking? That's so bad. Bread, right? Yeah. Go ahead, brother. I'll be here. I'm just trying to figure out what kind of color I want to assign to stuff. That looks good. Oh, I really like that. Yeah. BREAD. All right. Later, KFG. Hmm. I think if we go up, we can assign the foundations appropriate colors to help separate it. Make it a little bit easier. The black is kind of sick. Did we miss one? Yup. think that got all of them. Close. After we finish assigning the colors for this room, I think I'll end up calling it. I can do the colors for all these conveyors and stuff. I just want to get the foundations done so I have a decent reference to go back to for when I start doing the underside, because I want to assign specific colors in order to better organize everything. Right? When you separate by colors like this, it makes it a lot easier to turn around and like put up the lines for the conveyors, especially when you have things so close. And then I can turn around afterwards and do the foundations black on the other side if I really want to. If I want to have it all one consistent color. But for now, just to get the lines themselves organized, this is going to be like the easiest way, in my opinion. And then after we finish this room, I think we're going to cap off the iron and the aluminum section. That's what these two sections are. This is the iron or the aluminum. The other side is iron. Now we have a lot more aluminum being produced than iron, but it's like we're also swapping off iron for other things. Instead of using like iron for, or sorry, instead of using iron for like sheets, we'll use steel, for example, right? Because steel is just more efficient. Though one thing that we could consider when picking the resource is, like, for example, when you have like the wire, which is typically made out of copper, we may go with the iron rod on it, but I kind of want to minimize how much iron that we're using based on how much we can actually produce. And the only way to actually efficiently calculate how much we're producing is I got to see how much the conveyors are transporting, right? And then you need to have a total output. One way you can do this too, another very simple way, and I'll just show it real quick before I call it, because we're pretty much done. It's just the wiring thing, and it's because I already have all these lines tied up too. So if we go out here, you'll see that I have the bauxite, I think it was called. It's right there being pulled in. Then we have the water inlet, and then we have iron right here too. And the iron, is pretty much everywhere, so we can pull from anywhere and drag that out. For setting this kind of stuff up, just to make it really easy, so this is like a small billboard for input. It's a bit of a mess, so let's go ahead and drop it to the ground. Like, you can do this, what I did. Well, before I was doing the flight method, it's kind of obnoxious though. So you could just lay down foundations, just remove them afterwards. But once you set up one, oh, it's not working because of the walls. So if you have walls here, it'll line up better. So organization, small billboard, lot cleaner. And then once you set up one of them, you can easily go to like one of your things, copy the settings over, and then just paste. Right? And it's going to be the same for, say, the actual iron sign itself. So we'll grab the wall, basic wall, put it down right here, because we don't really need it anywhere else, right? take the iron side, and the reason why it's so massive is because when you're running the lines, you do want to be able to see it from a fair amount away, and the large billboard is just overkill. So we actually line it up perfectly like this, turn around and go ahead and paste it. And the reason why there's actually input sign is because when I'm gonna start running the conveyors to other segments, such as like the iron output, I'm going to need to designate an output station. One thing that I'm considering is having the walls on this side just be the generic input lines, and then the output would just go down the middle to another segment of the factory to be processed, right? So I'd have all the raw materials being processed on one side of the factory, and then on the other I would have the actual materials themselves becoming created. So back to what I was saying when calculating the total amount that's being processed, I'll show you what I did here. So one thing that you can do is you look at say this. You can see I already put 2 power cells in, which means I'm going to be producing about 240 per minute and 100 silica. Now do keep in mind that I'm actually silica short, so we're going to just ignore that. So we have the 240 here, right? And each one of those is ran to one of these, right, for further processing. So when you look at this one, it's aluminum scraps, which takes 240 and 120 coal. But we're just going to ignore the coal because it's going to be its own separate line that I'll be running later. Now, out of that 240, you're going to be producing 360 aluminum scraps per minute. And so if we look at aluminum scraps being produced or being processed at the foundry, right, aluminum ingot, it's about 90 each. So if you put 2 of these in here, it turns into, 180. And then if you have 180 being processed right here and you have 2 of them, 180 plus 180 is 360, right? So that's going to be using the proper amount of materials. And it's each one of these is going to be producing 240 total per minute. So each one of these pairs. So then you can turn around and take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 times 240 is 2,400. So now I know I'll be producing 2,400 aluminum ingots at one time, and that's roughly like, I think that's like 2 tier 5, 2 MK5s or something like that. But then you ignoring that, we can turn around, make one of these signage, come down here, and we're gonna have a sign similar to how like this iron ingot thing is, and it would be out here where the actual output is. See, like this big old mess right here. Now this and this are the actual outputs, but then you can turn around, put down one of these, take this, type in iron, or not iron, my bad, aluminum, put that down, and you come down to here, shenanigans, and it's 2,400 per minute. And then we'll turn around, make it nice and centered. And what we could do right here is units per minute, like that. See that? So now we know when, one of the things that you can do is you could have an Excel sheet with all these placed down. But later on, when I start doing the processing, this is what you would be using as a reference point in seeing if you have enough production. So you would go through, you would do the iron section, you would do the aluminum, you would go through and do all of them, right? Whatever raw materials that you would be processing. And for example, you can go into the codex, right? Open codex, parts. And then you can just reference your raw materials. So iron ingot is like tier 1 copper, same thing. You just go through and reference them. I think there's actually an even easier way of actually looking at all those. So if we go into yeah, see, here's the alternative. So codex is really useful too. I guess one way you can do it is you could just make one of the smelteries, right? You could use a smelter or like a foundry. Smelters. And of course you have the refinery. And you can go through and look at them, right? Because these are the units that you're using to create. So you have like, for example, steel ingot and alternative steel ingot. So this one actually takes 3 coal and 3 iron to process 3 steel. This takes 15 steel or 15 iron and 15 coke in order to process and make 20 coke steel ingot, which is just steel, which this is actually just way more efficient, right? And you can just go through and just look at all the materials that you need to produce. Like the main one that I would probably do last is like the refinery, right? I kind of put it off because of the aluminum, but doing the iron and copper is really good. And then you're gonna want to make sure that you get all your unlocks before you start processing everything. I'm actually really behind on hard drives too, but just having the basic stuff set up like this, I rebuilt the iron twice because of hard drives. So doing a massive construction, you usually just want to wait. Also, the phases is really important. I feel like every time I go up a phase, I end up rebuilding everything. Anyways, I'll call it there. You guys have a good one. I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks, but when I come back, I definitely want to be working on this and improving the Satisfactory factory. All right, guys, you have a good one and catch you later. Peace.